Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? Thank you for joining us. I guess we'll give it a start. We are expecting or have 1,000 registrations for today, and we're halfway through already. So we're 553. The number's going up, but I guess we'll give it a start for now, and then we can, your colleagues can join in as we speak. That way, you won't miss anything, and I know time is going to be up, so we can give it a start in that case. I guess you already know, this is session 5. We are covering elementary teachers today. This is session 5. This is the last session, by the way. So for those of you who are asking the question that I did not receive a link for the second session in the afternoon, there isn't a second session, sorry. We just have one session today, which is the session that you've already joined in. This is an intermediate teacher training. We are covering the course book Super Goal 1, Super Goal 3, and Super Goal 5. This webinar is, again, specially designed for intermediate teachers. We're covering session 5. I'm just repeating this to just make sure you're in the right session. We've covered 4 sessions so far. I'm not sure if you were able to attend because the participation that we have is so engaging and fantastic that we usually run over. We have only 1,000 seats. And once that is filled up, the other participants are unfortunately not able to join, and we are sorry about that. However, you can, your colleagues can share with you about learnings that they had during the webinar, and also there are handouts that you can have a look at that we have covered. But yeah, I guess I should stop talking and just check, as usual, if you can hear me, if you're connected. So if this is your 5th session, you know the drill probably by now. There is a hand icon on the right side of your screen. It should be just below your name. Please click on the hand icon if you can hear my voice. So that would be really useful. Excellent. Lots of hands going up. Thank you. Thank you. Lots of hands also not going up. It's clear. Thank you for telling me that in the chat box. Okay, I'll move on to the moderators really quickly. That's me, Sarish, Minerva, my colleague, Nikos, Bethany, and Nasir. We're here in the background to answer any questions you have, or if you have any trouble during the webinar, please make sure that you reach out to us, and we will help you out. Denai needs no introduction by now. She has covered how many trainings so far? I've lost count even, but yeah, we covered intermediate this week, we covered elementary last week, and next week we cover secondary. So yes, thank you, Denai, for joining us. She's a teacher educator, a content developer, and also an author. She has co-authored a lot for Saudi editions, and of course successfully delivered several training workshops for teachers in Saudi Arabia and supervisors as well. Thank you, Denai, for your valuable time and joining us today. Are you connected, Denai? I guess.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, great. The audio is great. I was just doing a check there.
Okay.
Thanks. She usually refers to a handout, by the way, so I'm just going to drop the link to the handout here. There is one handout on this link. You can download it now, so when she refers to it during the session, you have it with you. Simultaneously, we will also drop out the link to all the handouts for the intermediate sessions. So there were session 1, 2, 3, and 5. So in case you have missed any session, at least you will have the handouts. There you go. That should be sorted. The other thing is quickly our lovely housekeeping slides, which you must have been bored already, but it's very essential to cover these. As you can see, questions you have as well are on this. So once you're in the WebEx meeting, just make sure you are connected to the audio. You will have to connect to the audio yourself. So just make sure you're able to do that. One of my colleagues can drop a link about, or drop the details. I can also try to find that for you. So you can join the audio once you're there. We recommend you close down any high networking apps such as Netflix, YouTube, and any gaming platform. This is going to affect the bandwidth during the webinar. And we've received a lot of questions about the certificates. So both in the chat and Q&A is the fact that you will receive the certificates after we complete the webinar series. So we complete the webinar series on the 19th. So look out for that email in your inbox that's going to show up after 19th November. I'm sorry, after 19th November. So it's going to be an email that you received, and you will be able to download your certificate. We cover Q&A at the end of the session, and then so when we complete the hour, you're free to leave if you need to. You've got urgent matters to attend, so just feel free to drop off. But we will stay on for everyone just to make sure if you have any questions, which you pop it in the Q&A box, and we'll be able to answer those for you. There is a Q&A box on your right side. You're well versed with that. Drop any questions that you have, and we will cover in the Q&A. The chat box is for the presenter. So if you want to interact with Danai, put it in the chat box. She usually reads the chat for you. And the last thing is you're already automatically being marked present, so you don't need to log in anywhere or mark your attendance. It's just we know you're here, we can see you. However, you can only see yourself on the right side. You can't see other participants or their names. This is due to GDPR purpose and privacy. So please don't worry, you're not the only one. You have 670 people who are logged in with you right now. And we're expecting more, so you're not the only one. The chat box is not disabled. You can see it very much. The only thing is you can only see comments from yourself and not your colleagues. Again, due to GDPR, but then I usually read them out to you so you know what's happening and you go along with that. And I guess so far you have managed to do registration, 680 people. So it's just the link in your webinar, in your email that you need to use to join. Please don't share your links with your colleagues because that creates an issue with your certificates. It's going to show up as their name and not your name. So every link is unique. I cannot share the link with you for anything. It has to be the link that's in your email. So please reach out to the email. And one last thing to cover is we don't have an afternoon session. We just have one session for today. So there is one session which we're running right now, and we don't have an afternoon session for today. This is the last session for intermediate teachers. Any questions from me before I pass on to Danai? Can you please share the handout of the last session? I have done that above, so that should be session 4, dropping that for you again. Anything else? I just want to be conscious of time and hand over to Danai. Okay, great, nothing else. No thanks, excellent. Okay, Danai, thank you so much for your time and being patient. Thank you, Danai, and over to you.
Thank you, Suresh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you can hear me. There seems to be some sort of delay, but I do hope you can hear me. Just let me know if you can't, please. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Have we got the right one? Yes. Okay. Okay, we're going to be talking basically about management today, managing resources, managing learners. We're going to do the best. It's a huge area. I have taken into consideration some of the things that came up yesterday, the day before, and so on this week. But please do raise other issues. We can't obviously cover everything, but we'll do our best. Okay, now thinking of individual learners here, can we think about factors that affect the way different people learn? And in your view, which are the factors that affect the way individual learners behave and learn? What really makes a huge difference to the way they operate and perform in the learning context, in class, online? Hello? Anyone there? Hello?
Can hear you, Dinan, loud and clear.
Yeah? Okay, fine. All right. All right, I'll carry on and then we can pick things up. How important are social and cultural factors? Do all teenage classes across your country share the same characteristics? Nothing? You're tired today? Nobody wants to say anything?
Can you not see the chat box? There are lots of comments.
No, I don't think I can. Okay, now I can.
There's probably a delay, you know, you're right. There is a delay.
Yes, there is a delay, unfortunately. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Somehow they're the same. Okay, this is when we look at them as a group, as a culture. Okay, and when we stereotype. Okay, that's a very human sort of tendency. Yes, they do happen to be in different circumstances. I mean, individuals do. But it is also important to remember that as individuals, they're different. Okay? So although we do stereotype and think of all sorts of things about whether they can concentrate, not concentrate, how long we can maintain attention, how we can get them interested, and so on and so forth. We can't really do that very effectively unless we find out more about them as individuals as well. Yes, each one of the students has his or her own characteristics. Thank you very much. Exactly. Okay, individual learners. Somebody is saying that families are not serious about encouraging their children to learn. Yes, well, some are, some aren't. It will depend on the circumstances and all kinds of conditions and social conditions and social factors as well, right? Quite a few times people commented on the fact that some of your students obviously have access to the internet and they are exposed to the language and they play games and they chat with people and so on, and basically they develop fluency without necessarily being taught formally. We have that. Okay, it's good to find out. Maybe some others don't, because they haven't got a good connection, because their circumstances are such that they can't afford it, and so on and so forth. So, no, they don't all share exactly the same characteristics. So it's very important for us to find out. Yes, some of them don't have devices, exactly. But because of that, it's a good idea for us not to assume the same thing across the board about everybody. We know some things are shared. If you look at your handouts and think about what we discussed in earlier sessions, you'll remember some of the things that we've talked about and to what extent they're interested, how we can get them involved, and so on. But we will be talking about that today as well. So I'm just going to summarize like a couple of approaches. Yes, generalization is not always suitable. I agree. Okay, that generalization has to do with stereotyping. We sort of put everybody in the same box and see them exactly the same way. In some respects, because of the age, because of what they share from a certain point of view, we can sort of assume certain things. But beyond that, they're individual learners, and we have to find out. There are more differences sometimes than there are similarities. This very much depends on practical circumstances about where you are. Okay, so what the social setting is, what the main sort of work group is, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to summarize about 2 or 3 approaches to this. we do take into consideration is language learning, age, personality, attitude, aptitude, intelligence, cognitive style, and motivation, naturally. So motivation is a huge area. So it's not that I don't believe in it. I think it goes well beyond the classroom. It's really all the factors in a sense work together to affect motivation. Personality will make a huge difference. You have learners who are shy, who are more introvert. You have learners who are more extrovert. That's going to affect their behavior in class or online. And usually that's when you get the learners who are more confident, who will shout out answers, monopolize, and so on. That's something we need to be careful with. I'm taking into consideration some of the points that you have raised in previous sessions about how you can work in an inclusive manner, okay, to include all students. Yes, motivation affects them. It has to do, it's connected with their lives, okay, and their circumstances to a great extent. But you can do your best to help them in this particular context, in the context of language learning with you in your group, in your class, okay? I'll be referring to class to mean learning, teaching online as well as in the classroom. I realize that most of you have to work online, but I also understand that some people do work face to face. So again, depending on circumstances. Okay, now this was something that was raised yesterday. What's the difference between learning styles in general? When learning styles, I suppose you mean visual, auditory, kinesthetic, tactile. Multiple intelligences is a different approach, and it's a different study, basically. And it is an eye-opener in many respects, in the sense that in most cases in educational systems, the two intelligences that we test, that we evaluate, are linguistic and logical mathematical. A number of different tests test those two areas. But this has pointed out that there are all sorts of other areas that we shouldn't overlook, that individual learners, people, a person might have a talent, an ability, a gift in different areas, which makes it possible for them to have some strengths. And it's not that they can't change things. What multiple intelligences also tell us is that it is possible for one, for example, if it is possible for one who is not very good in terms of what musical intelligence, which has to do with sound, which is closer to what you would see as auditory ability, it is possible for them to develop it through work. Okay. So we try and take all this into consideration. Now, very quickly, I'm going to simplify this. In practical terms, for example, if you're working in groups, if you ask students to work in groups, the person who is spatial, artistic, okay, could be responsible for example, if you ask a group to work together, gather information, and prepare for a little presentation in class with a poster, just referring to the possibility of you working on a project, for example. These are quite important because you can assign different roles. So the person that is more artistic can take over looking for images, for photos, for pictures, or drawing things, for planning the poster. Okay, the person who is good at interpersonal intelligence, which has also been called emotional intelligence in other studies, is the person who is strong in communication and getting through to people and so on. So maybe, yes, the speaker, maybe they can organize the presentation and plan the way it's going to go. I hope I'm making sense there because I see no comment. Hello? Everyone there? Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it is important for us to find out what each learner can do rather than what they can't do. Do you think adolescents are affected by the same factors as young children? Thank you for confirming you're there. Thank you very much, Ada. Okay, is it exactly the same factors that affect young learners, adolescents, and adults? Yes, no, maybe. Some factors overlap, some factors don't. Okay, there are all kinds of studies, you know about this, that suggest that, for example, young children are better at picking up pronunciation and so on and so forth. More recent studies will tell you that it's the rate of learning that changes, but quite often older learners make up for that difference because they are experienced as learners, because they can understand systems, they can understand if it's a different cognitive process. Yes, some factors definitely change according to the age of the learner. This is exactly what I'm referring to. An older learner, an older adolescent, an adult, is able to approach learning, to address learning as an experienced learner in terms of how they learn, the processes they use, okay, theory, more abstract ideas, organizing thoughts, thinking about things, and so on. So there are differences. But we're talking about a younger adolescents here. So basically, you're talking about learners who come to you from elementary, so they have to go through that transition stage, which is not always easy, can be quite demanding for everybody, and the next couple of years when they do sort of settle into intermediate, and things change somewhat. How important is self-esteem, and to what extent does it affect the process of learning? Very important. Thank you so much. Bye. A lot, yes. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you. Yes, self-esteem is important. It's a very basic thing. Yes, Adele. Very, very basic, very important. Yes, connected with motivation. But yes, give some courage to interact. Okay. So, but that's one thing for us to remember because we're vital. We are going to go back to this point in a sense, directly or indirectly. This is connected with our approach to our learners, with our approach to, yes, let them trust you. Good, Huda, yes. Our approach to evaluation, our approach to mistakes, to how we work and so on. And it has really, it is connected very closely with the way we work in class, whether online or in the classroom. Yes, I appreciate their effort. So one of the things that we look at is how people develop, but how we deal with our learners, how we deal with our material, how we work with them can help or damage from this point of view. You can help learners build up their confidence, or you can, even unintentionally, affect in a negative way. Okay? This tends to happen a lot if you don't work in a collaborative manner and everything is done teacher to student. Make or break, absolutely. Yes. So let's carry on. And as I said, we'll get back to that point. Okay. Yes, make them accept their differences, make them accept themselves, which is quite a big thing. But in a sense, what you try to do is give them other points of attention, get them involved in what they're doing. Make sure you do sort of praise, you do encourage them, but so they can start performing, they can start participating. So you should not, these are things that some teachers say, I would like your opinion on these, if you agree or disagree. You should not be generous when you evaluate learners. It's better to mark them down rather than up. Disagree. Yeah, we have a mix here. Some people agree, some people disagree. I'm sorry, but I will say, yeah, I disagree. This has to do with self-esteem. I'm really referring to the situation, like if you look at two of teachers who say, I never give high marks when we start, so I can provide an incentive for students to try harder in order to get a higher mark. In terms of, this is connected with external instrumental motivation, if you like, but it doesn't work that way. If a learner, a teenager, knows that they can have put in a lot of effort, they are learning, they are doing their best, and expect some kind of acknowledgement for that, but instead of that, they're marked down, then you can't expect them to feel good about themselves, to feel confident, and to have a higher self-esteem. Yes, you have to know their abilities and try to help them. Okay, something else. I think spelling is very important. I always include dictation in tests and quizzes. Yes, you give each one what they deserve. All right, good. In terms of evaluation. Okay, I heard the word dictation quite a few times. Okay, dictation is a very traditional task type, right? But it's also, as we said, listening, okay, and writing. If you think it helps, yes, fine, but do make sure that you do it sort of, you read in chunks. You don't break down chunks. It could be sentences or chunks in terms of meaning. Okay, 4. Students should remember grammar terms at this level so they can understand and follow instructions. How do you feel about that? We don't seem to all agree on this. Okay, yeah, it's a mix. Yes, I personally disagree because this is meta language and some learners, in a sense, are so intimidated by them, even though they might be teenagers, they might even be adults, that if, for example, in your instructions you include grammar terms and there isn't an example, students will probably get lost. Okay? students care more about marks rather than acquiring information, rather than, you mean learning. Yes, but that is, we are all responsible for that, aren't we? So we need to give them something that they can get interested in, that they can get involved in. This is what I'm trying to get into. I don't want students to work together and help each other. I find it confusing because I don't know who gave the right answer. What would you say to that? Disagree. Disagree. No. Okay, fine. Good. Okay, again, we have a mix. We get a lot of disagreements, a lot of people disagree, but some people agree. A few people agree. Okay, one of the things that we should remember is that we don't want them to only be interested in marks. The one thing we should try and do is for us not to be interested in marks all the time. We don't test all the time in class. We try to help them learn. Yes, they correct each other. Good, they should correct each other. They should try and learn together. Yes, and as you said, some students learn more easily from each other. If they feel more comfortable with each other, if they're used to working together. Okay, good. So we agree that collaborative learning is going to help. Peer assessment, absolutely. Peer assessment is a good idea. Teach them not to learn to live, not to test. Yes, fine. Relate things to real life to encourage them. Yes. They divide the task among themselves. Yes, and if you think about multiple intelligences, then they pool knowledge, they pool abilities, they pool skills. How can they understand if we don't translate? I don't want them to use dictionaries. I don't think they know how to use them. I'm so glad you disagree. Okay. Yes, I know they complain about that, especially if they're used to having sort of translation all the time, especially if they have been asked to memorize bilingual lists, which is one of the worst things you can do. Because if you remember, for those of you who have attended other sessions, a bilingual list will give you one meaning, basically, one equivalent, which is appropriate probably, maybe, for one particular situation, but that's as far as it goes. Okay, something about the last one, which was good, activate their love of games and fun and the sort of things that they do. Yes, absolutely. So use what they know, use what they do. In other words, we shouldn't reject things that they're interested in, things that are sort of represent what they do most of the time. You can ask them to search for some things beforehand, before the class. You are sort of referring to, again, flipped work, reversing the process, and the roles. When it comes to vocabulary, I would say the best thing to do is focus on the topic, show them, for example, things that we've talked about. So I'm going to go through these rather quickly. Show them flashcards, okay, games, body language, and so on. Yes. Okay. So let's suppose you have visual, or you're miming something. Okay, to help them understand or to try and elicit a word. Yes. At this level, if you remember what we talked about before, reading, listening, get them to concentrate on the topic or the context, and brainstorm on words and language that they think they might find. How can you encourage them to use English dictionaries? By teaching them how to use them. So if you want them to use dictionaries, if you're teaching online, actually, it's easier to show them, yeah? Because what you get is a dictionary section, words that you want on the screen, okay? You ask them to find the explanation that they think is suitable for what they're reading or for what they're listening to. Okay, so basically you do a bit of vocabulary work using dictionaries with them in class. It's one of the things, it's some of the things that you can do online extremely well. What about translation? You use translation as little as possible. Yes, you give them the meaning and ask them to find the words. Good. If they use translation just to confirm that they've got the right meaning, it's a very natural thing that can happen. Yeah, I would sort of say, okay, if it's correct, and just move on, but not necessarily to build up vocabulary. Yes, remember, when we're building up vocabulary, what we want is for people to learn how to use chunks. In other words, how to collocate, what sort of grammar to use around words. So we want them to be aware of word grammar. And all of those things are possible if you're using dictionaries that also have examples, and you teach them how to look at them. Asking them to translate a text doesn't mean that they can necessarily read and understand. If you attended yesterday's session when we were talking about receptive skills, reading in order to understand and listening in order to understand, then it's a different process, isn't it? Yes, you let them search for the meaning of the word, and you ask them to also try and work out the meaning of the words in the text, in context. They should use e-dictionary. Yes, okay. So this is one of the things that we can do very comfortably, particularly if you're working online. We could have a whole session on how to train them to use dictionaries and other reference material. This has to do with reference skills, okay? But I'll say one thing, because you mentioned in general meaning. Yes, there are many applications. When we talk about meaning, one of the things I want to remind you is that quite some time ago, the idea of the central meaning was rejected. Yes. Why? Yes, dictionary app. Fine. But what I would say about any app is some of the apps are not reliable, so make sure they provide what is needed. Okay, one of the things that we don't do is we don't talk about central meaning. Why? I don't think I can recommend one particular dictionary. They're very good dictionaries. Okay, the apps, as long as they are reliable. Okay. The reason I'm saying that is if you rely on sort of some of the apps for translation, we know that what comes out in terms of text is really not acceptable. Yes, if they have to deal with too much new vocabulary, they get lost. But remember, we want them to be able to understand some vocabulary, but not necessarily use it all the time. Can you hear me? Because my screen seems to have changed. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, central meaning. Why don't we go by it? We don't go by it because it's very hard to pin down. And in experiments, for example, the classic experiment was with the word bird. And basically, the kind of bird that combines all the main features that one connects with birds, the typical bird again. And it showed us obviously that different people in different places had a completely different sort of image in their minds about which type of bird represented bird. We don't necessarily have think in words, yeah? Again, we have images. So reverse what we do when in class we show a picture to illustrate meaning. We also reverse it, don't we? We show, we give them a word and ask them to match with pictures, so we reverse it. Well, very often when we think, when we hear something, images, that they evoke images in our mind. So those images will vary depending on where your students are. Yes, those are aspects of vocabulary, opposites, synonyms, and so on. It's not a vocabulary session, so I'm afraid we won't have the time to go into everything in detail here. So I think we have sort of touched upon collaborative work, and some teachers are opposed to collaborative work in class. I think we have established that that has to do with attitude towards evaluation and testing. Again, what I would like to stress is that what we're interested in class is learning, not testing all the time. But what we should also do as teachers is listen very carefully to our learners instead of speaking all the time, so we know how much they can do. Make a note of those things for each student so we can see their development. So we should go a lot more in the direction of ongoing assessment. The problem, some students just hear English, something about their attitude, I suppose, to English was the last comment. Excuse me, I would like to sort of read it to you if I can. No, I'm afraid I can't find it. Okay. The attitude to the language, the attitude to learning English or not, as you have mentioned yourself, is going to affect learners, at least to begin with. But there's a lot you can do to modify that. Okay, a lot of teachers are reluctant to allow collaborative work online. Why? In the beginning, I couldn't understand some of the replies that people have been given, but it has become clear that it's closely connected with our wanting to control everything. Okay, yes, there was a very important comment about if the teacher loves what they're doing, they love the work they're doing, and they try to sort of appeal to get close to the students, get to know the students, they communicate with students well, then the students will start operating differently, then they'll become interested and so on. I think, yes, that's true. What you believe, you carry with you into class, whether it's online or in the classroom. And in a sense, a lot of what you believe comes true through your behavior and your attitude. So that's something we need to be very, very careful with. Some of the teachers that don't want to have collaborative or can't have collaborative work online is because they haven't got functions that can support that. They haven't got chat rooms to send people into as pairs or groups and so on. Collaborative work may be noisy in class. Yes, that's why you have to teach your students, train your students not to shout. They don't need to shout. They can speak very quietly within their group. Okay. afraid of making mistakes. Okay, that's exactly the point. If you correct every single mistake, they are going to be afraid to speak. If you address them as a class all the time and you expect students, individual students to answer, they'll be afraid to speak. Somebody talks about pooling knowledge, exchanging information, putting knowledge together. Yes, that happens in collaborative learning. Sometimes it wastes time. Yes, if you have technical problems, that's a different matter altogether. It is particularly good to have collaborative working especially for shy students and so on, because you will find out actually if you allow yourself to listen rather than speak to them all the time. This is what collaborative work really allows you to do, is when you move around in class and listen to what they're doing, you don't have to correct every mistake, but you can help when necessary. If you have chat rooms and you can do it online, you can do exactly the same thing. You listen in, okay, and pretty soon they realize that you can listen in at any point, and they get on with the work, okay? Yes, absolutely. You should ignore some mistakes during speaking or reading, and instead make a note of those mistakes to deal with through delayed correction. I think if you remember, that was mentioned yesterday. Some mistakes you tend to correct immediately, particularly if it's new language that you have just presented and you want them to practice. Okay. How would you introduce a topic in an intermediate class? Yeah. For example. Okay. All right. We'll go back to that. And then we'll go back to that. Okay. How about this? This is a different take on museums, yeah? The What on Museum guides. This is not one. This is not Supergoal 1. So it's a different sort of approach to it. A guide, a museum guide. How would you approach this as a topic? What was it like? Okay, talking about different places. Yes, it is Supergoal 3. Yes. Okay, how would you approach this topic? What would be the first thing you would do? Would you ask them to look at this page? Pictures, yes, good. Look at the pictures. If you're online, you can find, I'm sure, photos from museums, different museums, internationally or locally, whatever you think is appropriate for your students. But not only museums, you can combine with other events as well. Okay, show them on the screen, get them to think about which, if they have participated or visited any places, talk about them together if they can, brainstorm on the kind of language they might expect to find. So this would be collaborative, and it would work extremely well. If a short video, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Or you could, yes, get them to guess the topic by giving them partial information or giving them partial language. Sites, I have read, yes. Okay, fine. So you use what they know. You go back to what they know. Okay, find out if they also know about places, other places maybe, globally. Okay, so why did we do that? Yes, you use brainstorming. We do that to activate their knowledge, to activate what they know. This is very important for all learners. I know we have discussed it before. Okay. Yes, it can be a very interesting lesson, but it depends on how you manage it. If instead of doing that, you ask them to open their books, look at the pictures. You don't give them enough time to look at the pictures because, again, pictures require people to look at them for a while and identify things in them. And different people will probably see different things in them, and that has to do with perception, yeah? This is why it's so good to work in groups and pairs when you're doing that sort of thing. And you just go straight for the language. You can't really expect them to get involved. A network tour, very good, fantastic. Okay, yes, good. If you have the connection, if you have a strong connection, and if you can do things virtually, online, on your screen, there is no limit, really, to what you can do. But you have to plan your lesson in such a way so that you can also use your time wisely. Okay, let's go back. Flashing things. Okay. So this was the last thing we saw. I think, again, there's a delay.
Danai, can you hear us? I can't hear you.
Danai, he cannot hear you.
Yes, there is no sound. I cannot hear her as well. So we'll just check for a minute.
Okay, just sending her a message. See if she sees the message.
She did mention there was a connection issue today, so that must be it. Yes, there is no sound.
Cherish, I think she's on, but she may have some problems.
She's probably going to dial in again.
Yep, let's wait.
Meanwhile, if you guys have any questions for Danai that we can cover in the Q&A, I know we're at the hour, or at the top of the hour anyway. So I see she's logged off. She's probably going to try it and get in again.
Anyway, okay. I am sorry about this. See, I mean, I'm a fan. I like the technology. I think it allows us to do a lot of things, but sometimes it doesn't behave itself. Okay, you do have a handout that includes quite a few points having to do with management and so on. One of the points that we discussed in earlier sessions that is very, very important is how you set up your activities, not to rush through the instructions or to even translate the instructions and carry on, because you'll have people. Thank you very much for welcoming me back. Okay. We need to set up very carefully. I'm trying to make up for some of the time. I'm really sorry about it. And I hope we don't have a problem. Okay, I've got something here because there were quite a few people yesterday who mentioned questions, WH questions with reading text and so on. And it made me think of grammar translation and people making sure they ask a WH question almost on every sentence in the passage. Please don't do that. We're not doing grammar translation. And also, can we have a look at why we avoid some questions? Just to remind you, okay, if you look at text 1 here, okay, it's silly language, yeah? So it's a classic. It's not going to, it won't make sense to you. So don't try to understand what language it is. It's made up language. Okay. And plimpering is one of the rubbliest methods of wrinkling chippers. I want you to do this so you can see how some types of questions work. By indigenously grabbling the chippers in a chipper grambler, Rubius and so on and so forth, chippers may successfully be wrinkled in a very dinkable period of time. Chipple wrinkles are well gribbled at all times because of the very real danger or enflankment of the bobbler, a condition believed at one time to have been unfrumpable. Yeah, there are made up words there, but there are made up things, okay? Now, can you try to answer this question? What is the rubbliest method of chipper wrinkling? Look at the text. Can you please give me an answer? Please.
I think they're taking their time and there's also a delay. Yes, I see the messages coming up.
Yes, plimpering. What helped you find the answer? The text, the sentence. Thank you. Yes, grammar, right? Did you understand what you were reading? You search for the word, the content. Not really, no. You don't have to understand what you're reading. You just operate on the basis of grammar here, on how the sentence is constructed. So what is the rubbliest method of chipper wrinkling? You find those words in the text, as you suggested, the rubbliest methods of wrinkling chipper, and you work out that it's plimpering. You don't understand what you're reading, and you don't understand what you answer, but you give the answer anyway, and it's correct as an answer, but it doesn't mean anything. Look at the second answer, please, the second question, please. How may chippers successfully be wrinkled? Yes, two. Yes, by indigenously grumbling. Chippers in a chipper grumbler and so on. I think you can see what point I'm trying to make here. If you just extract words and ask WH questions that can be answered by finding the words in the text and extracting the word that gives you the answers. Yes, Exrubius. By giving the answer, you give an answer, you don't understand what you've read, and you don't understand what you answer. It's easy for students to do that. It doesn't mean that they're good readers. It doesn't mean that they understand. Yes, language in context. It doesn't make sense, yes. So you can go through a text and ask a question, if you like, about every single sentence along these lines, but it doesn't mean that students understand anything. Just one of the things to think about. So did this involve critical thinking? If you have the techniques to answer, no. Creativity, no. Understanding, comprehension, no. Decision making, not really. Did learners have to justify their answers? No. Did they have to make a choice? No. So, yes, it is a waste of time. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't ask WH questions, but you should ask WH questions that are important in the context of the topic and within the text, to get an idea, to get the manner where something happens and so on. But you don't have to really ask a question about every single sentence. Yes. Okay. So if you look at this, text 2 says, yesterday I saw the new patient hurrying along the corridor. She seemed very upset, so I didn't follow her. Just called to her gently. Perhaps later she'll feel better and I will be able to talk to her. What do you think the problem that's being described here is? What is the problem? Is there a problem? Angry person. Okay, do you mean, you probably mean the person who's running along the corridor. She seemed upset, yes, fine. Okay. Is the event taking place indoors or outdoors? Indoors. How do you know that? How do you know? What? The corridor. That's right. Okay, that's the information. Okay. Did the writer try to get near the patient? No. You know that she tried to follow. Okay. What do you think she said when she called to the patient? Probable. It could be different things, but what do you think? You're getting an idea about the context of this, so what do you think? Are you okay, sir, madam, whatever, yes? Man got no answer? That's a very good idea, yes. What might the job? Are you okay? Yes. Is something wrong? All that. What's the job of the person? You're saying nurse. Okay. Why? What makes you think that the speaker is a nurse? Yeah, patients, new patients, exactly. Maybe other patients as well, but it's the new patient, refers to the person as the new patient. Okay, so it's probably a nurse. All right. Do these questions differ from the ones in the first one, in the first text that you looked at before with the silly word? Yes, very much so. What disadvantage do traditional comprehension questions, the ones that are used in grammar translation, have then? If you remember what happened in the previous one, it's a huge difference. You can answer them without understanding much in the first case, in text one, not this one. Here you need to think, use your world knowledge, visualize things. It involves critical thinking. Yes, exactly. This is what I wanted you to say. Imagine this. So yes, we always try and visualize. It's very good. Okay. Yes, there is inference, but I don't want you to, yes, there is certainly. But what we do use is our knowledge of the real world, okay? Our knowledge, general knowledge, background knowledge, to make sense of what we hear or what we read. And on critical thinking, this is the point that would like, yes, for imagination too. This is the point, that I would like to stress. Thinking critically is not a matter of doing tasks that say critical thinking. Thinking critically involves getting people interested, getting them to think, encouraging them to think, and so on. All right, I just want to go through basic patterns of interaction just to deal with some of the questions that you had yesterday. This is the teacher-student in face-to-face class. We usually do this to present new language, give instruction, talking, reporting back from class after an activity, giving feedback to the class. Student to student in open pairs. Yes? Open pairs is across class. It can involve peer correction or teacher correction, so everybody can hear what these people are doing. This, exchanging, sharing information in closed pairs, is what we were referring to in collaborative learning, where you have two people working together, okay? And you can do a number of different things. You're exchanging, sharing information, interviews, you're brainstorming, role plays, leading activities, yeah? For brainstorming, working out possible answers, and so on and so forth. Students to students in Greek, same thing. Yes, they can swap answers, they can pool knowledge, they can put all what they know together. Discussions, project work, role play, creative activities. Yeah. So it is good to be able to work that way. We also have all kinds of other sort of versions, like student to student. When you hand over the role of the teacher, of the speaker, of the addresser, rather, in communication to a student, or just two students, okay? This could involve, it does involve flipping, obviously, you flip roles, demonstration, pair, group presentation, a number of different things. Online, I'm using breakout rooms, sorry, just it's connected with a particular platform that you're probably familiar with. Chat rooms is what I'm saying. Okay, group discussion, yes. Flipped roles online as much as possible. Okay, so thinking again of your learners, think of all the knowledge they have, topic-related, experience, day-to-day, personal, language skills, educational context, family context, cultures, skills, technology, the movies, the films that they watch, the games that they play online, the sports that they like or they do themselves. There's so many things to take into consideration. Find out about them when you're working with your students. Focus on the learners. Tap, access knowledge sources through images, questions, statements, other tasks, brainstorming, guessing, games. Okay, in pairs, groups to pool knowledge, collaborative learning. Allow thinking time, processing time, if you want them to think, understand, be more critical throughout the work that you do in class. Build up a situation, elicit ideas from students, flip the process, flip roles. Students can recreate the communication context, the purpose and manner of the exchange, rehearse, act out, project work, they can create, okay? And in this way, they can use their different intelligences, abilities, if you like, talents, okay, to recreate things using their own experience, using what they can relate to, thinking of the real world. And this is what this is what is going to get students being critical and creative overall. I know this is a lot to take in the time we have. And some people I know need to leave. So I think maybe Suresh will have to stop here and deal with questions that we haven't answered in the Q&A part of our session. Okay, fine. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We understand if you need to leave. We will just cover Q&A. So if you want to stay back, you can. If you want to leave, you can leave if you have other matters to get to, like classes, and it's fine. Yeah. Whoa! What was that? Okay, so I will move on to the questions now. Very few questions today, so I think you've covered a lot of it as they came along. How can I encourage them to use English dictionary?
I think we answered that question, and you made some very good suggestions as well to teach them how to use online dictionaries that you can have access to. You don't have to buy particularly, or obviously buy the rights to use them, but most dictionaries, there are so many dictionaries online that they can use. Train them to use them, however. In other words, if you want them to use dictionaries, you need to make that part of your lesson. So not only in one lesson, make it part of your activities. So you can train them, you can teach them how to use dictionaries. Thank you so much for all your comments. I really appreciate them.
The next one is, group work does not always work. If so, when?
Group work works if you organize it and get people to work together and make sure they know exactly what they're going to do. So this is also connected with how you set up activities. You can't rush through the setting up stage. You have to make sure the people understand exactly what they need to do. Yes, it can work with support. Thank you. It can work with support. If you don't believe in it, if you don't think it's going to work, then it's probably not going to work. We can affect things to that extent quite often. Yes?
Thanks. I'm just sorry, I was just reading. There have been questions coming in now. So what do you think about the grammar section at the end of each unit, especially they present a different content from the main grammar in the same unit?
Okay, I'll give you a very sort of cynical, practical answer to that. Those sections have been incorporated to cater for all possible points that might be included in your formal test. Some of them, a lot of them, are a matter of recycling from previous levels. So don't look for recycling within the particular semester or the particular lesson or number of lessons, okay? This is a language, so we want to activate, we want to recycle language that learners have acquired throughout their learning. Oops.
Sorry.
They can also help you because you'll find that there are quite a few of those items that students need a bit of help with. If you listen to them talking, if you look at what they write, when they write, and so on. So they're to help you, they're to make sure you've got everything there. That's the best I can do. Sorry, Suresh, yes.
Thanks. The other one is we have a lot of students in the class. How can we deal with them? Sometimes we have more than 45 in a class.
That's exactly that's exactly why you need to work in a collaborative manner. That's where collaborative learning works. If you have 45 and you expect them all to say something in each lesson, yes, it's an almost impossible task. And it pushes you sort of into the position where you end up lecturing and speaking all the time and not getting the students to do things. Unless, of course, you get groups to rotate and take on the role of the speaker, of the teacher for part of the lesson. But that's when we need to get people to learn how to work together so we can maximize the time. If you remember the shapes that I showed you before for interaction, and let me go back very quickly. If you look at closed pairs here, it means that they're all working at the same time. Same in groups. So with 45, you would probably prefer to have groups. They're all working at the same time. So you give them 10 minutes to do something or 3 minutes to do something. They have to do it. They all have to do it. And then you get feedback. You get the answers and so on. And this helps with time. If you're in the classroom, you move around. The teacher moves around, listening. You can also make notes. Yeah. Make notes so that you know what's going on, so you can maybe address things in the next lesson, at the end of the lesson, as delayed sort of correction or remedial. Do keep it in your record for remedial work or what you need to revise. So this is the best answer I could give if you've got 45. That's exactly when we need collaborative learning.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a follow-up question. If they have taken the lesson before, can we give them a short test about it?
Sorry?
If they have taken the lesson before, can we give them a short test about it?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean for diagnostic purposes to find out how much they know?
This is after they have taken the lesson, apparently, from what I understand, Guy.
No, I'm trying to make sense of the question because, as a diagnostic to find out what they have learned. You don't have to do it through a test. You can give them an open-ended activity, and if you're working in groups, it's great because you can move around and see how much they have been able to do. If you want to do a more controlled activity as a diagnostic activity, go ahead, but I wouldn't call it a test because that changes the attitude. It gets you different things. I'm sorry. I don't know if this helps. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. And the other one is, hi, I teach 6 different grades from 4th elementary to 3rd intermediate, which means I teach weekend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and super goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can you give me some particular advice about how to handle all these books?
No particular advice, except for the fact that what you have to bear in mind is that you're addressing younger learners on the one hand and teenagers on the other, and there are differences. But if you look at the actual language that you're doing, I'm sure you'll find areas that overlap throughout. Yes, I appreciate that. No, I don't think Super Goal 3 is too long at all. But again, it's going to seem long if you analyze every single thing on the page and you lecture and you translate and you teach your students about language rather than language. We're not We're not interested in teaching them about the language. This is not theoretical studies that they just learn things about. It's not about the language. It's learning the language.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're going to love the next question tonight. One of our problems is using grammar translation method. Please advise about that.
Oh God, this is another session. One of the problems you experienced a little bit, you got an idea about from text one that you read, where you could answer the questions mechanically. Grammar translation usually sort of involves text. That's the conventional approach. And you basically look at the text, you look at the words in the text, you translate the words, you look at the grammar, you analyze the grammar, the syntax, and you proceed to translate every single sentence in the text. Okay. It was used mainly to study classics, to study languages which are not being used at the time. Latin, ancient Greek, okay, old languages, ancient languages that are not used. But it was also used sort of centuries ago to study language, because that was the only way they could do it at the time. Yeah, and interestingly enough, they had to be quite autonomous. In other words, people tended to study. This is why you had scholars. They had to study on their own. So you can do that. And some of us have gone through the study of classics, and we know that what you have to do is go through words, go through the vocabulary, go through syntax, and syntax helps tremendously. So you can translate text, basically. But it doesn't mean that it's going to help you necessarily speak the language. Having said that, we know that people, motivated learners, will learn how to learn and use a language regardless of what anyone does. So we have to accept that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to do it more effectively, more efficiently, managing our time better, and trying to do it in a way that is realistic given current circumstances and given the fact that this is a global medium. English is a global language, yes? That helps.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Last question for you. Should I cover all the exercises in the workbook?
No, I don't think so. In fact, there might be exercises that you want to use at some point, or use questions from to prepare a quiz. If you don't want to use what is available in your test bank completely, you might want to use them very quickly in following lessons just to revise something. No, you don't have to. Don't think. This is my personal view on this, but it's there for you to use. And another thing is, you can use them. If you don't want to use them for the whole class, you can certainly ask people who need more support, who need more help, to use them. So it can help you with mixed ability classes. Okay,
I guess, yeah, that's it from what I can see. Thank you so much for being such a fantastic audience, everyone. You were amazing, and such interactive sessions with all your comments and questions. And we really hope these intermediate teacher sessions were useful for you. And you have given such lovely feedback in the comment section as well. Danai, I hope you get a chance to read them. So thank you so much. And thank you, Danai, for your valuable time and being so patient with us, answering them again for us.
It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. I have so much, and I've enjoyed working with you tremendously. Thank you so much for attending. One last thing I wanted to say is your handouts are worksheets, so they're meant to make you think a little bit and about various things. There is no test, so nobody is going to ask you about the answers. But if you want to do a bit of collaborative work, collaborative teaching, outside class, and you want to discuss things a little bit, that would be great. Thank you so very much for attending these sessions, and thank you for participating so actively. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. It means a lot to us. I'll also want to thank the Ministry of Education, Saudi Arabia, and Tasweer for all their support during this webinar series. And of course, our wonderful moderators who have been an integral part at running these webinars smoothly. So thank you so much. We'll let you all go now and get back to routine. But thank you so much. Thank you. And we don't have a session in the afternoon, by the way. So this was just the last session that we had today, which was from Intermediate Teacher Session 5. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.